Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
I hit girls, and they have something they want to talk about.
Cruel things, and they feel so proud about them until it comes back to bite them in the ass, and then it personally affects them. One would think being personally affected by something might cause a change of heart, might cause a moment. Not for MAGA. Put up this headline. Republicans' life-threatening pregnancy collided with Florida's abortion politics. Due in August with her first child, Representative Kat Cammack says doctors last year hesitated to treat her ectopic pregnancy. Go to the next slide. Cammack doesn't fault the Florida law for her experience. Instead, she accuses the left of scarring medical professionals with messaging that stress that they could face criminal charges for violating the law. Florida banned abortion after 6 weeks, and everybody has seen all of the headlines all around from Texas to Oklahoma to Florida, how serious they would be to physicians if they disobeyed this. And this little bitch could have had a moment where she spoke out about this and advocated for other women in her position. But instead, she blames the left.
It's so typical. I mean, you're seeing people that didn't vaccinate their kids for measles and their kids die and they're still anti-vax. These people have no ability to understand reality. This woman clearly losing her child and almost losing her life was not a wake-up call for her, because it is more important for her to own the libs and demonize the left and the woke policies.
And it's important to say she didn't lose a child. This was a fetus. This was a pregnancy that was not viable. And this is a private medical procedure that should have been conducted. But instead of finding rational thought and maybe a place where she could then speak to the public and say, this is dangerous. My life was at risk. The physicians were terrified because of the laws that I helped pass. Instead, she just blames the left. And women are suffering in the United States, but that suffering is the point. That is the point. These Republicans want women to suffer. And sadly, Republican women vote for it because the internalized misogyny runs so deep in MAGA households. Next up, we have something that's so disturbing. This is the acting ICE director. And here's what he has to say about ICE agents.
My officers and agents walk into danger so other people can sleep safely at night, so kids can make it to school safely and play outside. So while it's easy to be an armchair quarterback and make up talking points that get activists riled up, the bottom line is my officers and agents are out there protecting the same people who are threatening their safety. Law enforcement's common sense. Politicians need to stop putting my people in danger. I'm not asking them to stop. I'm demanding that they stop. Here's what I have to say to Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, and anyone else stirring up the outrage about what ICE does. These are real people with real families you're hurting with your ridiculous rhetoric and inflammatory comments. And it's time to remember that.
You know, Todd Lyons, the real people with real families are the people who are going to Home Depot to get supplies for a day job that they're working on that Americans won't do. And you have these ICE agents that wear masks on. If they're so proud of the work they're doing, why don't they show their faces? Cops in the streets, they show their faces. Sheriff's Department, they show their faces. Why are your agents not in uniforms covering their faces when they go and rip families apart, not knowing if anybody has committed a crime or not? This is so breathtakingly immoral. And the fact that the majority of the people that I know that support all of this also are deeply evangelical people is just such breathtaking hypocrisy. It disgusts me. It disgusts me to my core, because most of the people that live, especially in the Northern America, they're not privy to what's going on at the border. This is all shit that's drummed up by Fox News to make you think that all these criminals are coming in here and committing all of these crimes. Meanwhile, all the criminals work for the federal government. That's where all the criminals are. Elon Musk went in to shut down investigations into him and into his companies. But we're separating workers that pay taxes and they never get the benefits of it. They never get their Social Security. And the fact that there's not a humane path that's led by Christians, the Christians shouldn't be leading the charge of helping these people, is just so typical if you live in a Bible Belt state of the cruelty that reigns at the heart of evangelical Christianity.
Here's the thing. This man and the people that follow Trump believe in the dehumanization of other people. They do not believe that those people are human and have human emotions, because they have dehumanized them so that they can do all kinds of horrible things to him. Yet they want sympathy for their families, but they're incapable of applying that both ways, and it is the height of hypocrisy.
It's so disturbing. I think that's one of the harder things about living in America right now. I get that Trump is evil and a bad actor, and I get that he surrounded himself. The support, the numbers of support is the part that's so disheartening for me, that so many people see that and they get excited. They get excited seeing a person crying and screaming, "What about my child?" and getting arrested and hauled off, that it gives them some personal satisfaction. So I thought that message from the acting ICE director is just so abhorrent. And again, it's teaching this prioritizing life and categorizing which lives are of value. Right. And for him, these ICE agents, their lives are paramount to anything else. And my thing about ICE, show your faces. If you're proud of the work you're doing, put on a uniform and show your face, and then march the people that you claim are criminals, march them into court. But as it stands, the Obama administration and the Biden administration deported far more people, all using legal means that would never even have to go in front of any court, because every single person received due process. Next up, we have more just horrific stories as to what's happening in the United States. And this is what they try to detract you from all the time. Jean Favreau is reporting on a story that broke. And he says, "Is this what you wanted, Stephen Miller? A mother who was 5 months pregnant, who just found out she and her American citizen fiance were having a boy, lost her baby after federal agents in a detention center repeatedly denied her pleas for prenatal care, lived and worked in Tennessee for years, detained by ICE for over a month, forced to sleep on prison cell floor, served food with cockroaches, said she was starving and having stomach pains. Guards told her it was normal, begged to be deported so at least she could get prenatal care in Guatemala. ICE refused. She delivered her stillborn baby in front of 2 guards who shackled her feet. Then for 2 days, she wasn't allowed to call her fiance or talk to anyone. She cried alone and was deported to Guatemala shortly after the stillbirth." And so this is just a prime example of the breathtaking hypocrisy that lives in many Middle Americans' lives. They say they're pro-life, and then when you present this in front of them, they're fine with it. That doesn't, there is a lack of empathy at the heart of the fundamentalist and, quite frankly, mainstream evangelical movement. There is a lack of empathy for people that go through this type of suffering, and instead they favor punishment. They favor tattletelling on people. They favor always the toxic, most cruel choice. And for Stephen Miller, this is the shit that he just furiously masturbates to nonstop. I mean, he cannot get enough of this stuff. But Stephen Miller and his cruelty doesn't exist in a silo, because every evangelical Christian that I've ever met has this default setting of cruelty. They're nice on the surface, but right underneath, if you ask a question about poor people receiving health care or somebody that might not have health insurance, has cancer, receiving care, they're like, well, they should have had a job. There's always just this severe cruelty that when I've engaged in conversations with people that are of this faith, there's no empathy there. It's really bizarre.
There's no empathy, and particularly in a situation where ICE is involved, because that typically means Black or brown people. And so this woman was completely dehumanized because she was Black or brown. And I think that it is less distasteful to white people because she is brown. They do not have the empathy or the ability to humanize them, that woman would have the same emotions that they have about there, because under it all, racism is a driving principle.
I think that's a really good point, Pumps. I think that if this was a white blonde girl,
blonde hair, blue eyes, we'd be outraged.
Yes, they would absolutely lose their minds. I think there was a case recently where a person from Oklahoma, a white family, evangelical Christian family, he packed and he went to Turks and Caicos, and he had some bullets in his backpack. And at Turks and Caicos, that's a complete, it's very serious. Other countries take bullets and guns very, very seriously. And so he was incarcerated. The white freak out in Oklahoma and the hundreds of thousands of dollars that they raised to help this man, and acted like he was this just huge victim. And they would, if a Black person did that, they would say, we shouldn't break the law. It's your responsibility to know the law. But when a white person does it, we do GoFundMe's, and the outrage ensues. All right, next up, we have a Norwegian tourist who was barred from entering the United States, detained at Newark Airport. This Norwegian tourist, 21 years old, is barred from entering the U.S. after ICE guards find a meme showing J.D. Vance with a bald head on his phone. And so this is the same administration that is telling you that we need to deal with Iran because they're cruel to its citizens and they don't believe in freedom.
Right. They don't believe in freedom. Here's the thing. J.D. Vance and this entire administration, they're in the public eye. They lead public lives in politics, and they cannot withstand any criticism. This is so mild. The fact that they were going through his phone is an outrage to begin with. But this is not freedom of speech. This is censorship. And this is, we're going to tell you what we want you to think, because we are now the thought police. And we're going to get on your phone and we're going to tell you what you can do and not do. I mean, it's unbelievable. This is the United States.
All right. And then lastly, I always like to remind everybody that the reason we are being cruel to immigrants and the reason that everybody voted for Donald Trump because they were so terrified about the 5 trans athletes in the NCAA is because nobody can afford to live in the United States. The Miami Herald is reporting that adults making under $80,000 can't afford to live comfortably in any state. And so this is the ultimate distraction. So we started off this show telling you about, the woman who tried to get an abortion. That was their big issue. This has been their decades-long issue, that's just ripping up the fabric of family and blah, blah, blah. And then now it moves on to immigrants. We move on to the LGBTQ plus people. And Pumps brilliantly pointed out that they're able to dehumanize people because of the color of their skin. But the fact of the matter is, the people at the top of the government are dehumanizing all of working class Americans all day, every single day. They're telling you that you can only have insurance if you can pay a couple $1,000s a month for it. You need to get a better job if you want better insurance. The insurance company can then not have any consumer protections, any regulations. They can deny your claim at any time. So every single day, white Americans, Black Americans, brown Americans, all Americans that aren't wealthy are dehumanized constantly. But this is how they get the majority white base to vote against their interest, is by telling you that you can't have these things because of these brown people and their breeding and all of these crazy things.
It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. But this movement, led by Donald Trump, has brilliantly, and I know it's been going on for decades, but people voting against their own interest, he has made an art form of it. truly.
Yeah, George W. Bush did a really good job of it too. I remember one time Josh and I were pulling up to this gas station, and there was a woman, and she had probably like 5 kids in her car. The car was like literally going boom, 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 like barely making it in. The kids didn't have any shoes on. I mean, you could tell just extreme poverty. But she had Bush Cheney stickers on the back of her car. And I remember my husband looked at me and he goes, "It's unfucking believable that all they have to say is we love America and family values, and they get all the rubes to vote for them."
Always.
Yeah. All right. That's all we have for this episode. We'll see you all later.
You know, it is very, very interesting how MAGA can exist in this double world that they encase themselves in. Starting with that first thing about the woman there that blames the Democrats and left wing for making it hard for doctors to do what they're supposed to do by scaring them. That's a pretty bizarre twist in thinking, as far as I'm concerned. Knowing that it's the right wing that enacted these fucking restrictions, but she blames the left wing for that. It's like, well, obviously the woman isn't thinking right, and her level of intellectual ability is in question. Because if she is doing this because she's ignorant, that's one thing. But if she's doing this knowing that she's wrong, but says it anyway, it's obviously that she's been brainwashed so bad by the right wing, by listening to Fox News, some of these talking heads that you see on TV or on the radio or something, that she's immersed herself so deeply into the MAGA bullshit that she's afraid to actually say something that's contrary to what she's been told. So it's easier to go through these mental gymnastics to try and say, oh, it's the left wing that's created this angst, this problem here with abortion. Really? Well, I don't think you're going to find many women that would agree with that. Okay? And so I feel like that incident right there really kind of sums up MAGA, doesn't it? Think about that. Think about all the different issues going on and where they stand on everything. It sounds to me like these people are a master at deceiving themselves. Okay? These people really are very good at it. And why is it? It's because they've been listening to Fox News all their fucking life. For this new generation of youngsters, how long has Fox News been around? What? Over 20 years? That's a whole generation right there who grew up watching that shit. And now they don't know how to think in the correct fashion. They don't care about evidence that disproves what they say. They don't care about how when they believe on something and it backfires on them that they were wrong, they still believe that they were right. Okay? It's a dangerous thing. It's a cult-like mentality. And these people aren't even aware of what a cult is. I don't think they are. I mean, they'll sit there and watch, what's that guy, Jones here in Jonesville, whatever the hell that place was here. And they'll call the guy, oh, he was an idiot, he was a loon, he was this, he was that. At the same time, they're sitting here backing a guy, Donald Trump, who is just as stupid and loon as that fucking guy was, and they don't see that they're also in a cult. That's a lack of understanding what they're doing. Okay? They used to say that, well, they still say, I think, that women mature faster than men. Okay? Now, I can't say that I totally agree with that. And part of the reason why is I think that it's not 100% true. Maybe in some cases, you know, women will mature faster than men. But I also think that where you grow up also plays a big factor in that. Okay, if you grow up with some good parents and you're taught some good things, given morals, what's right and wrong, I think, yes, you can mature quick as you grow up because you've got good guidance. You had good teachers, you had good things. All right? But there's a lot of people that grow up and they don't mature because they were exposed to a lot of bad shit. They didn't have good parents. The teachers weren't all that great. And so these people will mature much slower. Now, let's just take, you know, how, you know, you got a lot of women these days, it seems, especially the young school teachers out there molesting kids in class. Here they are, they're older than the kids, but they're acting way immature, okay? And so that means that, you know, these people, if they don't have like a mental problem or whatever that might be, they grew up not being taught right and wrong very well, okay? Or whatever else, other reasons you can imagine that would stunt someone's personal growth. And so they go around doing these things and not realizing that it's wrong because they don't feel the impact of what they're doing is wrong until they're arrested. They got cuffs, and then all of a sudden, you know. And the same thing for men. You got men teachers doing this, and for the same reason. They didn't grow up with the fucking morals they should have been taught and all that. So the reason why I'm going on this tangent here is now let's look at this group of MAGA people. Okay, you got women in this MAGA group that, you know, hey, we don't like abortions. Okay, they're arguing against themselves. Okay, these are people that are arguing against themselves, taking the side of everything that would just destroy them. When they go and vote, they're voting against themselves. See what I'm saying? Why? Because these people are not mature. They cannot think. They don't have the wherewithal that they should have got when they grew up to recognize bullshit when they hear it and to recognize when something isn't right, morally, ethically, and all that. They don't care. How do you think Trump got in there as president? This is a criminal, for Christ's sake. You know? All kinds of goddamn crimes, and still some that he hasn't answered for yet. Because he put a stop to it. Okay? And they think this guy's right. They think he's a good people. That's not mature. That's not mature. None of those people in MAGA following Trump are mature. They're just a bunch of followers. They're not leaders, because if you're a leader, you could think for yourself, but they're followers. They want to be led by this guy because, hey, they think he's great. It's owning the libs, okay? It's all this immature reasoning why they voted for him. Immaturity, okay? So there's a lot of people in this country who had grown up not being raised properly, not being raised the way they should have been, so that way they're more enlightened about things than they are now. Okay? Now, that's a lot of people, isn't it? That's a lot of people. And unfortunately, for a lot of these folks that call themselves Christian, and the fact that they do everything that is unchristian-like is also another piece of evidence to show that they're immature. Okay, you can still be a Christian and follow the faith that's in the Bible and live a decent and good life. All right, you can understand, you know, what the Bible's for, but you won't find that in MAGA. That so-called, these people call themselves Christian, because they were not taught the right way about their Christianity. All right, they were exposed to the wrong elements. There are good people that are Christians, okay? I'm not saying the whole religion is made up of idiots, okay? No, there are some good people. I've met some. And that's because they were taught properly about their religion and about ethics. Because, hey, you can't learn religion if you don't learn ethics. You've got to have your ethical lessons, which is what Sunday school is supposed to be about, right? It's supposed to emphasize the morality of a Christian, the ethics that go with it. A lot of these people apparently skipped a lot of those Sunday school classes, and they didn't get that. They just got what was written in the book, and they just interpret it in their own demented way, what it means, and they go through life with all these backward philosophies, which is why we have cults. And that's what MAGA is. It's a cult. You know, and so what you have are people, and, you know, and I think I've said this, you know, before, people that don't understand much of anything. They just have their, you know, two-dimensional beliefs, and they stick to that like it's their life. But they're so wrong, and they don't want to know that they're wrong. They just want to continue to believe what they believe, and that's why I don't really take the time to really try to talk to any of these people who can try to confront me, to get into some argument with me online. It's a waste of time, okay? Waste of energy. You can't win against such people, especially when they're older. When they're young, maybe, you know, but when they get older, they're more ensconced into their stupid beliefs. Okay, and it's very difficult, okay? Because as it stands, people, adults, don't like to be shown that they're wrong about anything, okay? I don't know why that is. You tell somebody they're wrong about something that they believe their whole life, and you prove it to them that they're wrong. Oh, they can't stand that, can't tolerate that. So it's a futile thing, you know, practicing futility to try to make these people understand what they're doing, what they're saying, and how hypocritical they are. So the I-Hit girls, they talk about all these things about MAGA and about that, and they need to, you know, I think they ought to just bring in that issue that I had just talked about maturity, and how there isn't that much of it in MAGA. There's not that much responsibility for what they do in MAGA, okay? They don't take responsibility for anything. Oh, sure, some might break away from it, okay? But to even get into it is strange, okay? The very idea that anybody thought Donald Trump could be president in itself is a very immature bit of reasoning, considering the history of the man. Okay, he would be the last person, any sane person would ever say, oh, he ought to be president. Nobody in their right mind would ever say something like that. Okay, so what does it tell you? The people who said he should be president are not in their right mind, and they're not all there. Okay, these people are, you know, immature, ignorant, they're all those things. And I feel like it's up to the rest of us to help them. But if they don't want to learn, if they don't want to understand why they're wrong, then we're always going to have this divide in this country. We're always going to have your right-wingers and your left-wingers. We're never going to be able to come to the center, because it takes maturity to meet in the middle. It does. You know, it takes some compromise. It means people are going to have to listen to the other side and really think about what's being said, instead of just these knee-jerk reactions in this childish way that they talk to each other, you know, hurling insults and, oh, it's your fault, and oh, it's your fault. That's not the way you talk, okay, when it comes to discussing important issues. Like this thing, let's just take, for example, this war going on right now in the Middle East, okay? If people came to the center here and talked about this, the issue would be the United States should not even be involved in this, period. That would be the mature thing, because to take a side, it's like picking which bad guy you want to back up in this thing, because Israel hasn't proved that they're the good guys, okay? They've done plenty of shit this year, okay? Iran has never been proven to be anybody we can ally with. All right, so why bring the United States into taking one side or the other. That makes us look weak when we do that. In fact, it makes us look untrustworthy. The rest of the world sees that and says, oh, the United States just ain't the same anymore. I mean, they're siding with some bad people here, and they're stirring the pot and making it worse. Now, anybody that's intelligent will see that and say and say the same, that this is wrong. Trump shouldn't have done this. But on the other hand, you've got people in this country who see this and say, oh, well, if Trump says we should go in there and support Israel, then let's do it. Okay, he's right. No thinking on their part. No analysis. No critical thinking. None of that. Because you've got to be mature in order to do that. You have to be able to understand things better before you can, before you just jump into something. Okay? That's the thing about that really it really annoys me a lot. It's like, come on, people, Jesus. I mean, somebody in here's got to have a brain here to understand what the hell's really going on here. Okay? And we're always being lied to. On the other hand, how many times does Trump have to lie to MAGA before MAGA wakes up and realizes you can't trust him? I mean, just because he's a Republican, if he was a Democrat, they'd have stopped trusting him on day one when he took the oath of office, okay? But what's the point of trusting this guy if all he's going to do is lie to your face all the time? And you know what I'm saying? What's the point? Why keep setting yourself up to be disappointed? Aren't you tired of that by now? I know I am. Yeah. When Joe Biden was president, yeah, there were some things that he did I didn't approve of, okay? Overall, though, he was a good president. Nobody's perfect, okay? No president we ever had was perfect. They did some things we liked, but they also did some things we didn't like. We can accept that. I can accept that. But people have been taught not to accept that we should have just this one side, and even when they're doing wrong and screwing everything up, we should be happy he's president. No. Right now, Trump has done more bad things than any good things. So at this point, that's the reason why his approval numbers are so low. If he'd do more good things, that might help. But he's not that kind of guy. He hasn't proven himself to be the kind of guy that would recognize, I fucked up, I need to undo this, or admit that he was wrong. He'll never do that, ever. So, yeah, maturity is an important factor here, and unfortunately we're not getting a lot of that from MAGA, and I don't think that's going to change. I don't know when it will. I think things are going to have to get extremely difficult in this country in order for that to see that happen. But it's sad that we have people that are that stubborn, because they make everybody suffer with them. And so I don't know. That's my 2 cents here on this. So I'll see you guys later.